minutes past midday. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Can I ask that we settle down? It's time for panel 7, Mainstreaming Agenda 2030 and Strengthening Media. And this session is looking at access to information, how it amplifies the media and civil society's pursuit of transparency and accountability. To moderate this session, we have Christian Burgess, who is a program specialist at UNESCO. Claps as they come up, please. Thank you, thank you. And speakers, Michael Forst, Special Rapporteur on Environmental Defenders under the Aarhus Convention, will be joining by video. We have Albert Kwabena-Jumfor, President of the Ghana Journalists Association. Is he here? We have Patricia Watts, Acting Deputy Coordinator for support of the U.S. Department of State's Global Engagement Center. Is that Patricia? It's a pleasure. Omar Farouk Osman, Secretary General of the National Union of Somali Journalists. Is Omar here? You're going to have to keep clapping for me until they all get here. We have Mina Mensah, Right to Information Coalition of Ghana.
Come one closer.
We have Josephine Maltz, journalist and Rainforest Investigations Fellow from the UK, who will be joining from UNESCO. Mr. Burgess, your audience.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? So the mic is working, so we can go ahead. I'm Christian Burgess. I'm a senior program specialist at UNESCO headquarters in Paris. And I am from the part of the House that deals with freedom of expression, safety of journalists. And we will bring this dimension into this discussion here, where we bring the journalists, the civil society, and the government as the stakeholders discussing this issue here. We have the SDG agenda under, but we want to draw the attention to the work of journalists and how access to information is vital for investigative journalists to do their work. We will also bring two topics of high interest globally to this discussion. So the environmental issues, so we have a specialized journalist connecting from the UK, speaking about investigations into environmental issues. And then we have the issue of disinformation. So we will discuss how access to reliable and accurate information is the best antidote for countering disinformation. So this is what our distinguished panel will be discussing. We have with us representatives of we have Omar Farouk Osman, who is not just the president of the Somali Federation of Journalists, but the Federation of African Journalists. And we have Mina Mensah, who comes from the civil society, and she has been campaigning for freedom of information law in Ghana for a very long time, and she is from the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. And then we have the vice president of the Ghanaian Journalist Association, Linda Asante Aguiye, yes? And from the US, we have Patricia Watts, and she is the acting deputy coordinator of the Global Engagement Center. And she will explain what that does, what that means. So let me start by introducing the Special Rapporteur on Environmental Defenders under the Aarhus Convention, Michel Forst, who will give us a video address. So please run the welcoming video. We have the video from Michel Forst. If it's not ready, we will play it at the end so we can get the conversation started. What does the technical team say? So, first I'll give the floor to the president of the African Federation of African Journalists, Omar Farouk Osman. So tell me how you address this issue, how access to information is vital for the work of the journalists around Africa, and how you have been, since taking this role, how you are emphasizing that in your work.
Thank you very much, Christian and colleagues. Yes, access to information is in fact, the key ingredient to the journalistic work. And for us as journalists, we believe there can be no quality journalism, investigative journalism, without unfettered access to information. And that's why we say access to information is the bedrock of a transparency and accountable governance in Africa. In other words, journalists being regarded and the news media being regarded as the watchdog, they cannot practice or perform their duties as a watchdog without having access to a credible data or information that they need for their job. So for us as journalist community, we believe, and it's a reality, that without access to information, it's very difficult to discharge our noble duties in being the eyes and the ears of the public. And when it comes to that, the Federation of African Journalists has always been campaigning against not only access to information, and like Gilbert was saying, that yes, we have laws, but are we really implementing the laws as we want? Because there are significant barriers in accessing the necessary information to perform their watchdog duties when it comes to journalists. And that is what we are campaigning, and that is what we are saying. As journalists, what we need, unfettered access to information.
Thank you, Omar. And now I want to bring to the conversation Josephine Moulds, who is an investigative journalist from the UK. She was supposed to be with us, but we thought COVID was only COVID-19, but now we are in COVID-24, and unfortunately she couldn't travel. And but Jo has been doing very interesting investigation into environmental issues in Africa. And I want to ask her to start describing her investigation and what kind of information she gathered, and to tell us about the way she sees it from her side, from the bureau that she works with, from the Pulitzer Center, which she belongs to. So, Josephine, the floor is yours to describe your investigation and connect to the discussion here.
Okay, will do, and thanks so much for having me. I will share a couple of slides, if I may, just so you don't have to stare at my face. So, yeah, like Christian says, I work for the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, which is a UK-based organisation, and we always publish in partnership with larger organisations, so people like the BBC, New York Times, Le Monde, and so on. And last year I was lucky enough to get a fellowship with the Pulitzer Rainforest Investigations Network. And that essentially funded an investigation that I did into the auction for rights to drill for oil and gas in the Democratic Republic of Congo, including in very sensitive parts of the rainforest. And that's quite a complicated story to tell, because obviously it's very environmentally damaging drilling for oil in the rainforest. And yet DRC is a country where people, 2/3 of the population live on less than $2 a day. So this project was being touted as a possibility to drive development. So preaching about the environmental harms of that project wasn't appropriate. So instead, we looked into whether the funds raised from that auction would actually reach the population and whether the rule of law was being followed during the process of the auction. And so our first story revealed that the hydrocarbons minister, a guy called Didier Boudimbo, essentially rigged part of the auction so that a Canadian company won, and that Canadian company had very recently been set up by a Congolese engineer and was completely ill-equipped to carry out the work. And we published that with Reuters, and I worked really closely with a journalist called Sonia Rolli, who some of you may know. She's very well respected. And then I did another story with The Guardian, and that was based on interviews with communities living in the rainforest. And they hadn't been consulted before this auction took place, which was actually against Congolese law. They were supposed to be consulted before the auction, and they were very much opposed to it. And so it was great to get these stories out with publications like that and draw international attention to this story. We also published with Actualité.cd, which is a Congolese publication, and Pulitzer helped produce a video, and we circulated that video. It was just like 1 minute long, but we circulated that on WhatsApp, and apparently that got really good traction in DRC and was very widely shared. And so hopefully that improved access to information about the auction. I don't know if you've got any questions, Christian, or shall I carry on talking?
No, I think this was a very good overview, and then we go into the discussion for, since your investigative work demands access to information, and did you need to apply any of the requests to the government, or how did you carry out that part of your investigation?
Sure. So it's a really good question, because the DRC government wanted this auction to appear very transparent. And so they actually put a lot of documentation out there. There were maps, there were presentations about the potential oil reserves, and they sort of filmed each step of the process. So events where they were announcing the bidders that got through to the next round and so on. But then it was during a reporting trip to Kinshasa, I met a number of people with knowledge of the auction who were deeply uncomfortable with how it was being carried out. And that transparency, they suggested, was a bit of a sham, and there was a lot of backroom deals and things going on in the background. And we essentially helped them get that story out there. So it was primarily a source-based story, but obviously we were making pretty strong allegations against a fairly senior politician in DRC. So the story had to be cast iron. So eventually I think we got 4 sources making the same allegations independently. And crucially, there was documentary evidence to back that up. So there were 2 reports, one in which the DRC authorities essentially assessed this Canadian company and decided it was completely ill-equipped to carry out the work to extract the gas from Lake Kivu. And then the same report, apparently published on the same day, that just removed key concerns. It changed the scores, it added them up wrong in order to put this Canadian company out on top. And then our sources were the ones who said it was essentially the minister who had asked for that report to be changed.
Thank you for this. And one more aspect of your work, I wanted to hear from you, because for many of these issues, the current issues, you need cross-border cooperation between journalists. And you belong to the Bureau of Investigative Journalism and also to the Pulitzer Center. And please explain what you see as the value of journalists working across borders to do these kinds of investigations on these pressing issues that are of global interest.
Sure. So, yeah, it was a real collaborative effort, and the Pulitzer Fellowship provided an incredible international network of journalists, and we could all collaborate together. There was a real exchange of information between fellows, an exchange of skills and so on. For us, collaborating with Reuters was really important because it's a trusted news source. So as well as reaching the Congolese people, we were really keen, sort of a key audience was investors and the donor countries, people with real influence in DRC. So we needed to be published in a publication that they would trust and also that they read. And I think that collaboration between Global North and Global South publications can work really well for both sides, because there's brilliant outlets in DRC. Actualité.cd, which I mentioned, regularly publishes really strong critical journalism, but it's not easy to do because Congolese journalists face the threat of arrest. They can have their funding withdrawn, they can have their media license withdrawn. And so if they collaborate with organisations like Pulitzer, international outlets like ours, hopefully we can take the heat when the government responds quite robustly, as they did in the case of this story. We can provide that kind of international coverage and hopefully provide some access to resources in terms of mapping, company registries and so on. And then from our point of view, the on-the-ground reporting is absolutely crucial. So as well as the kind of reporting trips that I did in DRC, we often partner with local researchers and journalists, which is so important, obviously, to understand the local context, but in terms of face-to-face meetings with sources. And these are really important stories, like beyond the one that I'm talking about, which is more government-based. We often write about international corporations that tend to behave worse in the global south than elsewhere, and the evidence is often there for journalists and researchers who investigate. So we love working with the journalists on the ground, and hopefully we can help bring those stories to an international audience.
Thank you very much, Josephine Moltz. And we at UNESCO, we've been highlighting the issue of safety of journalists covering the environment, and we came out with data earlier this year on the risks faced by journalists covering the environment. And then we also have the issue of disinformation around the environment, disinformation around climate change, for example, that we at UNESCO are developing now. So I want to move the discussion to the other topic now on disinformation. And we have here Patricia Watts, who is an acting deputy coordinator of the Global Engagement Center of the State Department in Washington, D.C. And I want to ask you, Patricia, just to explain how you address disinformation and how access to reliable and accurate information is necessary in order to counter disinformation.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen, and also thank you, UNESCO, for allowing us to be part of this topic and this discussion. We believe that countering disinformation is complementary to access to information. The GEC's mission is to lead, direct, synchronize, integrate, and coordinate efforts of the U.S. government to recognize, understand, counter, and expose foreign propaganda and disinformation as it pertains to undermining the efforts on policy, stability, and security of the U.S. government and our allies. Threat actors are undermining the ability for publics to be informed by using information manipulation to intentionally deceive and mislead. While other parts of the state focus on policy, the GEC focus on countering foreign disinformation. We seek to protect the integrity of information environment where foreign state and non-state actors are using manipulative tactics to exert malign influence. We believe that every country has the right to make its own case, but that case must stand and fall on its own merit. It needs to be fair, and it needs to have an even playing ground. The State Department, through the Global Engagement Center, has put tremendous effort towards analyzing and exposing information manipulation by foreign state and non-state actors, as well as supporting the journalists and civil society actors who do related work in this space. In February 2024, in collaboration with the U.S. government partners, we exposed Russia intelligence services for providing material support and guidance to the African Initiative. This is a new information agency focused on relations that spread disinformation regarding the United States and European countries. One of the African initiatives first major campaign was to target U.S. and Western health initiatives in Africa with dangerous health-related information. The campaign sought to undermine public health projects across Africa, beginning with disinformation regarding an outbreak of a mosquito-borne viral disease, spreading those conspiracies in order to act that the disease was spreading across the continent. The report, the exposure report, was amplified. More than 384 million people saw this through hundreds of media platforms. The success of the exposure relied on independent journalists who utilized unique access to information provided by the United States State Department and its partners. Our ability to shine a light on disinformation and provide information that would not otherwise be publicly available ensured that the journalists had the necessary data to amplify these critical stories and get in front of the disinformation campaign, and that's where the value is.
Thank you, Patricia, for this overview on the introduction of the center and how it counters disinformation. I want now to move to the civil society part of the discussion. We have Mina Mensah from the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative with us. She has been campaigning for the implementation of an access to information law, and I want you to explain to us what kind of engagement the civil society has. What's the role of civil society on these issues that we have been discussing here?
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and good afternoon to everybody. This is quite a broad issue, because we are not only campaigning for the implementation. Before you can implement, you need to have a law. And thankfully, Ghana and many other African countries have laws, but there are other countries who do not. And one of the lessons that we learned when Ghana was campaigning for its law is collaboration with other African countries and with the African Commission. I see Commissioner Pansy Tlakulu here, and she was quite at the forefront of our advocacy. Gilbert is here. Edits from Nigeria. Nigeria had then had their law. So one of the key things that we learned is collaboration with other countries who already have the laws in place. Because then they have the experience, they have the strategies. It is not one strategy for all, but at least you can learn lessons from those strategies that you can implement effectively in your country. One of the things that we also learned, and it's a global issue, the fact that you have a law does not necessarily mean that it is easy to have access to information, because no government wants to be open. I remember at one of the OGP meetings, I think it was in 2020 or 2018, thereabout, I can't remember the date, the then Prime Minister of the UK, Tony Blair, stood on a public international platform and said, we governments, we do not want to be open. We don't want to give information. If you don't demand, we will not give you the information. We will give you what we want to give you, not what you really need. So it is for us to demand for the information. Unfortunately, all over the globe, the demand side of access to information is a problem. Governments do not proactively disclose information that they actually need to disclose for the citizenry to keep them accountable. I listened to the lady who spoke first talk about environmental issues and climate issues. And there is a lot of misinformation and disinformation in those areas. However, governments have accurate information in their bosom. But because of the fact that some of these things are tied to natural resources, they are tied to corruption, you request for the information for contracts and you might not get them. If you get them, you get a bit of it, and the rest of it is cloaked under national security. And that is one of the key challenges that most countries are having, the cloak of national security. Very broad, very bland, and that is it. this information, we are keeping it for ourselves. So in implementing the right to information laws, one of the lessons is that the demand side is quite weak. People get tired. It's mainly very few civil society organizations who would request for the information. And if your information commission is also not very strong, you have a huge problem. Fortunately for us in Ghana, we would not say that our information commission is the strongest, but at least they do their job. They'll put the pressure. At the end of the day, they are also limited in the things that they can do. So that is also a challenge. However, proactive disclosure is a real problem. And I think that governments globally need to be pressured to give information proactively. I think the trend is too much towards demand and supply. Demand and supply. And trust me, if we do not change our strategy and require that information which government might decide is sensitive is proactively disclosed, then a lot of people might not have the kind of information that they need to make informed decisions in terms of things that are happening around us globally. COVID was one example. All kinds of information were in the bosom of governments. And they were releasing tidbits. Someone would say, in our part of the world, we say thoughts, like in a piece in a glass, a piece of a whiskey in a glass. And that is what governments were doing. And a lot of people lost their lives because of misinformation and disinformation. So I think that I agree with Advocate or Commissioner Pansy when she said that ATI laws are becoming, if they are not already, redundant in the kinds of environments that we are in. And we need to look at those laws again and push for broader ways of getting information in a manner that is accurate, that is credible, that can combat the kinds of problems that we are having all over the world. So from the civil society point of view, if we do not get accurate information, we are the interface between government and the citizenry. The kind of information that we get is what we churn out. And if government is bringing out information that is not productive or useful for the citizenry, if we don't get the accurate information, we cannot push policy. In any case, what governments sometimes forget is that when there is disinformation and they keep the accurate information with themselves, it is to their detriment, because at the end of the day, we would help them solve those problems. A clear evidence is what happened in the UK recently when a young person died, and the information on social media was that it was a migrant who killed that child, and all hell broke loose. And it was because government actually, the UK government delayed in giving accurate information. So please, government officials here, we are partners in this fight. Information is a public good. We paid for it with our taxes. The information was churned out for us, not for you. At least for you to make policy decisions, but for us to vet those policy decisions and find out whether they are useful to us or not. But if information is kept as a secret, then you give us the chance to tell all kinds of stories, lie if we can, and do all kinds of things. So this is my preliminary speech. Information is all of us, for all of us. And governments, it's in their interest to ensure that civil society gets credible, accurate, timely information to help in policy making and to also help in awareness creation and advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mina. And in the spirit of the multi-stakeholderism that we so much treasure at UNESCO, we've heard from civil society, we have heard from an international journalist, we've heard from a government and from a federation of the African journalists. But now I want to anchor it into the Ghanaian reality. And we have with us the Vice President of the Ghanaian Association of Journalists, Linda Asante Aguirre. And I wanted to hear your, so how do we anchor this? How do we actually practice this on the ground as journalists on a national and a local level?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and we are so grateful for making us part of this panel. For us, it's been a history. In fact, Ghana, the law was drafted in 1999, and it took us over 20 years for it to be passed. Fortunately, this government passed it in 2019 and assented to it, and then it came into force. We tried testing the law. Some journalists have tried, some individual Ghanaians have also tried. So far, it's been good, but we have some challenges. One, what are the challenges that we encounter in testing the law? We do not have a lot of information officers in all the MDAs, that is the ministry, department, and agencies, as has been directed, for them to do. So you walk into a ministry to demand, you need to fill a form, after which, filling the form, you are supposed to pay yourself. And for us, the cost involved is another challenge, because journalists are supposed to, get the information. For us, we think that it's supposed to be for free. Why do we have to pay for information that is for public good? Is one of the challenges that we encounter. And then the delay in getting us the information. You will apply for it, but it depends on them to whether to release it to you or not. And even if they will release that information to you, is it the information that you want? They somehow limited to the information. And as my sister rightly said, it's more or less like a drop in the ocean. So as and when, and what they feel that they would want to give to you is what they will give, but not as to what the public actually needs to know. And for us, we think that moving forward, getting information or access to information should be something that you need to apply to get. It's something that should be given out freely to every citizen, every media house, every journalist who is supposed to get that information. You don't need to apply for it before you are given. It's a public good, and therefore it has to be made available to every person who is supposed to get it.
Thank you, Linda. And it also highlights that when a journalist is doing an investigation, he can rely on his media outlet itself, but then there is a union of journalists on a national level, on a regional level, there is civil society to support, and then there are government initiatives that can be used. I think we could go on for a very long time here, but I think I would like to hear just very brief comments on the discussion from each of you before we close. So I will give each of you the floor for a very short comment and interaction to what's been said. And then we will hopefully hear the message from the UN Special Rapporteur. So we will go in this order from Patricia, Omar, Mina, and Linda, and Joe on the screen. So first, Patricia.
Yes, as it pertains to getting information to investigative journalists, independent journalists, we do have a diplomatic tool. The tool is a whole of society approach where it starts with government to government. It's called the Framework for Countering Information Manipulation. With this is 5 focus areas. One is, at first, is establishing a memorandum of understanding with a government entity. We have one already established in Africa with Cote d'Ivoire. What the 5 action areas are: one is establishing a national strategy in policies. The second thing is to actually have government institutions. The third is building human and technical capacity. The fourth is working with civil society organizations, independent journalists, and academia. And the fifth one is to establish and build bilateral and multi-partnerships. That is how you proactively get at countering disinformation and get information, fact-based content out into the field where you all are at the front of the battle when it comes to fighting disinformation. So we have to arm you with the information that you need.
Yes, when it comes to the access to information and from the journalist's angle, what we need to maintain is the persistence, advocacy, and collaboration between the journalistic community and the civil society. That's very important. And for us, what we see here is 3 points. Number one is the importance of a robust legal framework. And I'm insisting that a robust legal framework. That's very vital because the foundation of effective and credible journalism and civil society activism lies in the legal guarantees that ensure unrestricted access to public information. Second, well, it has been talked about, there is the challenges about implementation. Even in countries that have laws, there is a challenge of implementation. Because the laws exist where they exist, the implementation is often marred by bureaucratic, red tape, or outright resistance from officials. That proactiveness is not there until you demand. Persistence pays, sometimes we say. So we need to persist and say, we need that information. This is our right. This is our constitution is, enshrined rights. It is in the African Charter. There is a model law on access to information for Africa, which all our member states, in Africa at least, have, accepted. So that is another challenge that we all need to confront. Third is the role of the media and the civil society. We can only champion transparency, good governance, accountability when we have the people on our side, when the people know what is happening. So what we need to also make sure that access to information representatives is the right to know. So the people need to be educated. The civic participation is very key. And we as journalists, media practitioners, and civil society activists, we have to play a role in terms of bringing the citizens on board so that they can effectively demand and drive the right of access to information. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. And over to you, Mina.
Thank you. Hopefully every representative here is from a democratic country, and democracy thrives on transparency and accountability. We can only hold officials accountable and ensure that there is transparency when accurate information is given out. Governments can only be legitimate if the people are with them, they carry the people with them. And this can only be done when information is accurate and timely. You cannot give me accurate information about a year after that information is needed and expect that the people would follow your policies. Lack of transparency and accountability only brings about chaos. And we can only amplify the good work of the state if people are well informed, people know what is happening, people are discerning, and people are participating in governance. If Africa wants to move at a quick pace, then Africa and the world need to know that there's so much misinformation, and access to accurate, reliable information is what we need.
Thank you, Mina. Linda?
Thank you very much. As has been already alluded to by my president, Omar Farouk, I will still go ahead and reiterate what he just said. Access to information is a very vital component when it comes to journalism. And for us to effectively implement or enhance our mandate as to educating and then informing the general public, we need access to information. And information plays a very vital role. So though the law has been passed here in Ghana, in some African countries, implementation is ongoing. We still have some challenges and inhibition, and that is what we need to address. And I will take this opportunity to call on the commission, that is the IDUAI commission, to step up their game, ensure that not only journalists do have that right to access information and even test the law, but the general citizenry. How informed are the citizenry? They are not the only we as journalists are not the only people who will have to apply for information. Let the citizenry also know that they also have the constitutional right to also access information. And the judiciary, just not quite long ago, a journalist tested that, law, and then accessing information even from the Ghana Police Service. Ghana Police Service, the fire service, and it has to go to the courts, and the court ruled that that information should be given to the journalist, and I think it's the right, step in that direction. Let the law work, and again, allowing the law to work, no inhibition for that one. I will say again. Other than that, we will be somehow limited in terms of executing our duty as the fourth estate of the realm, and then educating the general public. So I will again pass this on to the commission, and I'm seeing the commissioner, the boss himself sitting right here in front of me, that let us, do our best, and then liaise with the CSOs, and I'm happy what the CSOs are doing. We are collaborators. Let us collaborate and ensure that the citizenry are also empowered and there are no inhibition, because information is vital. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. And finally, from the panel, I would like to hear from you, Joe, in London. Any comments and final words on connecting to this discussion?
Yeah, sure. So everything we've been hearing about in terms of disinformation, kind of the selective disclosure of information or the lack of timely disclosure of information is so significant and damaging where it comes to climate and environmental issues. And I see it very much as part of our job as journalists to combat that and to try and uncover that hidden information and to ensure that we can provide that access to information to the public. And that can have real impact. So the story I referred to, we heard that providing access to that hidden information and sort of portraying the reality of the auction did in fact deter bidders and investors from taking part in the auction. And actually in December last year, Perenco, which was the last credible bidder, pulled out of the auction, and it is now being seen as something of a failure. And so, yeah, I just believe that providing access to the information is really important, and making sure that the public has access to accurate and timely information about climate and environmental issues.
Thank you very much. And if all of you thought that we could just go home and rest after this, we have heard from all of the panelists how important work is in front of us. So how we have, each of us in each of our professions, each of our communities, we have a lot of work to do to ensure the access to information, the provision of accurate information, the laws in place, the implementation of the laws that are then in place, and to work together as different stakeholders to the same cause. And on that note, I will end this panel, but you can't leave until we hear the message from the UN Special Rapporteur on Environmental Defenders under the Aarhus Convention. And I believe the video is ready now that we plan to show in the beginning. So it's not an opening act, it's a final act. So thank you very much for your attention, and see you, and let's get to work on all this.
everyone. Unfortunately, I could not be present with you today. Good morning, everyone. Unfortunately, I could not be present with you today in Accra, so I will try to very briefly highlight a few points from my perspective as the UN Special Rapporteur on Environmental Defenders. My mandate, which was established in October 21 under the Aarhus Convention, enables me to receive complaints from defenders who face threats and attacks for exercising their rights to access to information, to participate in decision-making, and to access justice in environmental matters. From the very start, I have received complaints that specifically concerned environmental journalists who, because of their reporting on environmental matters or their documenting of environmental protests, were facing defamation trials initiated by companies like in Armenia, or criminal prosecution from the authorities, for instance in France, or yet again defamation campaigns, threats and home raids like in Guatemala. And one of the reasons why journalists face these intimidation attempts while doing their work is precisely because by providing access to information, they contribute to empowering the public and civil society in their pursuit of transparency and accountability for environmental violations or for state inaction in the face of climate change. They contribute to laying the ground for the public's right to participate in decision-making and to access justice when it comes to environmental issues. As I said, my role as the Special Rapporteur on Environmental Defense is to protect those who face threats and attacks for their involvement in the defense of the environment. I focus on ensuring that defenders, including environmental journalists, can exercise these rights safely without fear of reprisals. This responsibility lies with the 46 countries that ratified the Aarhus Convention, as well as the EU. Protecting environmental journalists is not only about safeguarding their right to work freely, but also about protecting the public's rights to access information on environmental issues. Their safety and independence are crucial for ensuring transparency and accountability, which are fundamental pillars of democracy. I wish you very fruitful discussions this morning.
So on this, I conclude this panel and the floor to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can clap them out of the stage. Give them something to do. The last panel is here, ladies and gentlemen. It's the only thing standing between us and lunch as well. So, but let me remind you that we still have parallel sessions, and for this last panel in Prince Hall, we have mainstreaming ATI for youth, persons with disability, and promoting multilingualism happening at the Prince Hall over on the other side. If that is the panel you'd rather join, you can make your way over now. Happening here at the Rage Arena, moderated by Laura Newman, who is a Senior Advisor, Office of the Vice President for Peace Programs at the Carter Center, USA. Are you here, Laura? Okay. You know what to do. She's going to the stage. Let's start clapping. And Laura will have as her guest Godwin Gumisiriza, Manager Welfare and Community Services, Kampala Capital City Authority. Onelia Roca, Director of Women's Secretariat, Guatemala City. Ajin Techi, International Relations Advisor to the Mayor of Accra and lead on women empowerment programs. I think that must be Rita. Nikki Brennan, Councillor and Cabinet Member for Social Justice, Community Safety and Equalities at the Birmingham Municipality in the UK. Rapporteur will be Ingrid Modet from UNESCO. Madam, your panel.
No, I'm okay. Before we begin, hello everybody. We're going to have someone speaking in Spanish. So if you are not fluent in Spanish, may I give you this moment? They're ready for you to go get some headphones so that you can understand her presentation. So I hope to see lots of you get, and besides, you'll need to stretch. So take this moment to stretch and grab headphones. Bring some back for your friends. And does everybody have to have headsets? You guys are amazing. Okay, is this group, are you all fluent in Spanish? Ask a friend, she'll bring you back a headset. Excuse me, those working the PowerPoint, could you put mine up, Laura Newman, while we're waiting? That's not mine. Laura Newman. At least yours is there. Perfect. Oh, it's them? Who am I turning to? Okay, I think we can get started if we can cut the music. Whoever's in the DJ, can we? Oh, perfect. So while you all are still getting your headsets, I'm going to start my introduction. Hopefully, can you all in the back while you're doing this still hear me? Thumbs up? Awesome. All right, well, thank you all for coming. I think this is going to be an incredibly exciting panel, bringing together people that you don't often hear from, which I think is unique when we come together like this. So let me just start again. My name is Laura Newman. I'm here with the Carter Center. I'd like to start, fantastic, by thanking UNESCO for allowing us to organize this panel that's really looking at municipal service delivery and using information as a bridge to women and other marginalized populations. In addition, I'd like to thank the government of Ghana for organizing this, and many, many congratulations to our colleagues at the Right to Information Commission of Ghana for their leadership and their effort to put this together. I just want to start by noting that yesterday was my boss, President Carter's 100th birthday. He is the oldest living president of the United States. And having celebrated that yesterday, I was reminded by a number of you that President Carter and I were here in Ghana 14 years ago, in 2010, to work on the Right to Information in Africa. We had 140 people from 18 countries come together to talk about the right to information. And for those of you who are here, you probably remember we were over at the beach, how one of the congressmen from Liberia stood up, and this was when there were almost no countries with the right to information. Really, South Africa was almost it. And he stood up and challenged the rest of West Africa, and he was very vibrant in saying Liberia is going to be the first country in West Africa to pass a law, and in fact, he was right. It was a race to that between them and Sierra Leone, but Liberia won. The other thing that happened at that conference is President Carter opened it by looking around the room and saying, where are the women in Africa? Why is this a room full of men? Because quite frankly, almost everybody who came was a man. And although we had invited women, she often was substituting herself for a man. And it was at that moment, that was my aha moment, when we came back to Atlanta and said, what's happening? Why aren't women more engaged in the right to information? Why aren't they seeking information? Why aren't they at the table when laws are being passed? Why aren't they advocating? Because if we're right, as we've all been saying these last 2 days, that the right to information is a fundamental right, of course we want to make sure that that right is available for all persons. So really, our trajectory, my professional trajectory started here in Accra as we then began our Women in Right to Information programming, which culminated now in what we're going to hear today, the Inform Women, Transform Lives campaign. So I'm going to go through my PowerPoint super quickly, but before I do, I'm going to introduce who you're going to hear from today. And it's going to be, we're going to have each participant or each speaker come and do a PowerPoint. We're going to try and make them really interesting and also really quick so that we can have a conversation, because I think it's important for us to talk a little bit more about this and also to hear from you. So our first speaker, when I'm done, is going to be Onelia Roca. Since 2016, Onelia has served as the director of the Women's Municipal Directorate for the Municipality of Guatemala, where she implements multiple key initiatives, including municipal policy and plans for comprehensive development of women and protocols for the prevention of harassment and violence against women. Following her will be Godwin I'm going to say this wrong. I'm so sorry, Godwin. Gumisariza. He has worked at the Kampala City Council Authority for 6 years, where he's the manager of welfare and community services and responsible for designing, planning, and implementation of community empowerment and social protection programs. Our third speaker is going to be Councillor Nikki Brennan. She is a Birmingham City Councillor, appointed as a cabinet member for social justice, community safety, and equalities. And she works with colleagues in the cabinet and pledges to work for every single community to deliver the services to the citizens that they deserve. And finally, we'll be hearing from Rita Ajantechi. She serves as a special advisor to the Mayor of Accra on international affairs, where she plays a pivotal role in managing the city's international partnerships. And she also works on women's economic empowerment, cultural awareness programs, and advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. So really impressive group of people. I'm going to probably skip most of my slides, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on why we started this campaign, and then give it over to my colleagues to tell you more about it. So we've heard about this, the value of information for women, make more effective decisions, access government social services. Women can then participate more fully in public life, exercise their fundamental rights, and harness available opportunities. So I think we can all agree information is really critical for women in our communities. And yet there are all these obstacles. And the Carter Center undertook a study in 4 different countries. Our most recent, and I see the commissioner here, was in Sierra Leone. We were able to do this in different continents, different locations, different backgrounds, different cultures, and yet we were able to show that across all of these countries, 2,000 interviews were done, that there is these set of obstacles that women and marginalized populations face, ranging from illiteracy to lack of awareness, lack of time and mobility, cultural norms, digital divide, etc. So the idea for this campaign was to try to take those essential municipal services and those target population of women who need them most and link them through information, recognizing that often those services were being underutilized. So the campaign objectives are to, one, raise awareness of women's right to information and the value that it holds, to support the cities who are part of the campaign to be more innovative and intentional in reaching women with information and services, to help improve the city capacity to do that, certainly to increase the number of women accessing those services, and to demonstrate the impact that information has, and finally to establish these cities as world leaders and drivers of change. The campaign includes a whole bunch of things that you're going to hear today. The elements include integrated media strategy, improving capacity. We provide a lot of documents and toolkits. We bring on civil society or community-based organizations for complementary programming. There's a mural project. There's peer-to-peer learning and a lot of knowledge sharing across the cities. These are our 35 campaign cities. We will be going to cohort 4 next year, so if your city is not one of those, please let me know. We do invite cities to apply. They have to go through a whole application process, and then we select the top 10 to 12 of all the cities that have applied. And you can see here that these cities range across the world, and from the most developed cities to some of the cities that are still in development. And we'll have a chance to talk a little bit about that as well. And I think my final slide is just to give you a sense before we go to our colleagues of the kinds of themes. Each city selects its own theme, its own service. So we don't come in and say you have to work on this or you have to work on that. It's whatever service they've identified is the most critical for women and the most underutilized. So it's ranged from economic empowerment services to psychosocial and health, caregiver services, sanitation, public safety, and a lot of cities are working on services for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. So I am thrilled to have these 4 colleagues with me. I have been so in awe of the work that they've done to reach women with their services. A lot of you know me. You know I've been doing this for 25 years, and I have to say I have had more fun working with these cities than in any other part of my career, because these cities are so committed. They're so proximate. And frankly, by 2050, 70% of our world is going to be living in these cities. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Onelia to come speak first. She will be speaking in Spanish. And then I'd just like you guys in your order to come up, and then we're going to have a conversation. So thank you all very much for being here with us. And I bring you Onelia Roca from Guatemala City. Onelia, por favor. Oh, de acá? Okay.
Muchas gracias, muy buenos días. Agradezco al gobierno de Ghana, a la UNESCO y al Centro Carter por permitirnos estar el día de hoy acá y ser partícipes de esta conferencia.
I'm sorry, is the translation working? Are you able to hear? Translators?
La presentación.
Okay, everybody go channel 1. And also, can we get the PowerPoint, please, for Onelia Roca in Guatemala City? Oh, and there's a thingy to move it. Sorry. Cuando aparece. Okay. Are we ready with her PowerPoint? Do you want to just start?
No.
Todavía no ¿Quieren empezar?
Okay.
Déjame abrir. Después de hablar, déjame ver si la gente escucha bien. No sé si escucha. No hay presentación. No sé. Okay, she's going to start. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you can hear her? Okay. I mean, if it's being interpreted. Okay.
Ok, gracias. Ahí tenemos una presentación donde quiero pues que tengan una idea dónde queda mi país, Guatemala, Centroamérica, y que tuvimos un recorrido bastante largo para poder estar acá con ustedes. La ciudad de Guatemala cuenta con una ley de acceso a la información, lo cual permitió que la ciudad de Guatemala estableciera una oficina de acceso a la información pública. La administración de la ciudad de Guatemala trabaja alrededor de 3 propósitos: mejorar la calidad de vida de sus ciudadanos, el incremento de oportunidades, principalmente para mujeres y para jóvenes, y la generación de empleo. Contamos con una política para la promoción de los derechos y las oportunidades para las mujeres. Nuestra ciudad tiene una extensión territorial de 692 kilómetros cuadrados, donde habitan aproximadamente 1 millón de personas, de las cuales más del 50% de nuestra población son mujeres. Cuando vemos estos datos a nivel de país, se mantiene la mayoría de habitantes mujeres. De 17 millones de habitantes, más del 51% son mujeres. Como en muchos de nuestros países, el acceso a la educación de las mujeres sigue siendo una tarea pendiente. La mayoría de la población de mujeres está comprendida menor de 50 años, lo que significa que tenemos una población bastante joven, por lo cual el interés de nuestra campaña fue llevar la información a esta población. La campaña Informando a las Mujeres, Transformando Vidas, de la cual fuimos parte al haber sido seleccionados dentro de las 13 primeras ciudades que conformaron la primera corte por el Centro Carter, pues nos permitió que nuestras autoridades municipales, concejalas, mujeres, asumieran el reto de implementar esta campaña en nuestra ciudad. La campaña, si bien es cierto, tenía un eslogan mundial, también nos permitía asumir un eslogan a nivel local. Para Ciudad de Guatemala, este eslogan fue: conoce lo que puedes hacer por ti, porque nuestro objetivo era acercar la información, que las mujeres conocieran los servicios municipales a los cuales podría tener acceso. Y fue así como nuestra campaña Conoce lo que puedes hacer por ti desarrolló actividades con información en espacios públicos, principalmente donde confluyen las estaciones del transporte público municipal. También una campaña que incluyó radio, televisión, MUPIs que les llamamos, que son unas estructuras que se colocan en el espacio público para que puedan ser vistas por la mayoría de personas. Con estas acciones logramos llegar a más de 1,5 millones de personas que pudieron tener acceso a la información. La imagen publicitaria que se colocó en los diferentes lugares, pues no fueron personas extraordinarias, influencer o de este tipo, sino que fueron mujeres comunes de la vida diaria de nuestra ciudad, quienes estuvieron llevando el mensaje de los diferentes servicios a través de esta campaña. Aquí hay algunas fotografías de la información que se trasladó en el espacio público, y otra actividad que incluyó la campaña fue incorporar la parte artística a través de la elaboración de murales, desde talleres participativos para diseñar lo que pretendíamos mostrar por colectivos de artistas de la sociedad civil. Estos son algunos de los promocionales que se usaron para llevar la información a los diferentes sectores. Esta es una estructura que se fabricó y que sigue siendo utilizada después de la campaña para colocarla en los diferentes espacios públicos municipales con información relevante para las mujeres. El objetivo de la campaña, como dije al principio, es que las mujeres conozcan los servicios que se prestan en la Municipalidad de Guatemala a través de las casas municipales, donde se brindan principalmente 3 servicios: asesoría legal, atención psicológica y atención médica. La campaña nos permitió que la población atendida fuera, en el caso de la atención médica, que fue la que mayor impacto tuvo, un incremento de más del 200% de mujeres atendidas, 19% más en atención psicológica y 18% más. Y el objetivo de llegar a población joven también fue logrado porque muchas de estas mujeres eran menores de 35 años. El impacto en las redes sociales también fue significativo al tener un crecimiento de nuestros seguidores de más de 277% y un alcance en nuestra página de Facebook de más del 449%. Tuvimos un evento de cierre donde presentamos a nivel local los resultados obtenidos porque consideramos sumamente importante la participación del gobierno local en este tipo de iniciativas, tomando en consideración que es la autoridad que está más cercana a los ciudadanos. Agradecemos el apoyo al Centro Carter. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. I'm now going to turn to Godwin to tell you a bit more about what they did in Kampala.
Thank you, Rola. Sorry. First of all, my name is Gumiseris, as you rightly pronounced, Godwin, and anyone that finds a big challenge with the name, just call me GG. My name begins with GG, Godwin Gumisiriza, from Kampala Capital City Authority. And
whoever's in charge of the PowerPoint?
Yes, that one. Glad to be here. Thank you, UNESCO, for inviting me, and Accra, Ghana, for hosting us. Thank you so much. We can't take it for granted. The hospitality and everything we're enjoying in Accra. Thank you once again. Purposely, I'm here to share a testimony of Kampala Capital City Authority on what we have benefited from the campaign codenamed Inform Women, Transform Lives, that started in 2021 to 2023, supported by the Carter Center. And I will be sharing with you, after introducing Kampala Capital City Authority, KCCA, as the one in charge of Kampala, which is the capital city of Uganda, that comprises 5 divisions, with a population of about 4.5 million people during day, a night population of about 1.5 million people. And it is the industrial and commercial hub of Uganda. And I will not dwell into the distribution of the population. At your own time, the Secretariat can share my presentation for the details. And to begin with is that, like many other cities in the world, women and young girls face a unique set of challenges with regard to access to resources and income-generating opportunities, and thus face poverty challenges. Of course, we are aware of the unemployment challenges in most cities, in most countries. Uganda and Kampala in particular, very inclusive. In regard to this, the government of Uganda initiated grant schemes, these are on schemes, for women One is called the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program, and another one is called the Youth Livelihood Program, which are being implemented across the country, Kampala inclusive. This is aimed at helping the women to access finance facilities. The interventions, as I mentioned, started from 2021-2023, supported by the Carter Center, whose regard to inform women, transform lives campaign that comprised of the following: one, social media influencer campaign, inform women, lighting the city campaign, engaged a local organization called Uganda Youth Development Link, which is a CSO partner to train women and access to information and link them to grant opportunities. And a mural that was set in one of the city suburbs called Kamocha, a media advocacy campaign implemented by Afro Digital company that was procured for that purpose. That is to do with how Lighting Kampala campaign was done at the city center, and this is in the middle of Kampala, and part of the International Day for Universal Access to Information activities included electing the city square and lighting it, as you may see in the photos there. The mural in one of the city suburbs was selected through a competitive campaign erected in the city suburb called Kamocha with very high population density near local markets and taxi stages. Social media influencer campaign, 5 influencer videos were produced and disseminated through social media. And many more other interventions that we made that I couldn't bring here included radio programs that were made during the period. And in the local languages, like earlier on mentioned, the local languages were here a very key issue for us. And we looked at the radios that most women listen to, most people listen to, and we informed them about the existing loan schemes. I'll go straight into the impact of this media campaign for women. One, that greater support from within KCCA. KCCA is an abbreviation of Kampala Capital City Authority for access to information about the grant and loan schemes was achieved. Women's awareness of the grant scheme was raised in all the 5 divisions. Increased the number of women's group and associations were registered in Kampala. Increased number of participants for grants overwhelming available resources envelope was realized. Good signs and success of enterprises and improved income for women were the other impacts of the campaign. The results from this campaign were very, very impressive, as you heard from the remarks of the director yesterday, that more than 300 eligible applications for the funds involving 221 women, 462 youth. The youth combines both the males and the females according to this loan scheme, in a period of only 3 months as compared to 50 applications that were previously being received before the campaign. Out of these, a total of 72 groups from the youth scheme amounting to 631 million and 33 Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program groups amounting to 369 million Uganda shillings, that the two combine approximately totals to about 263,000 US dollars were approved, and these were funded during that period. And those are some of the women groups that are engaging in the local trade in the markets. And these are the women that are hawking, and we are enabled to acquire the women, the market stores in the markets after the campaign. As you can see, there we have a multiple of pictures showing the KCCA staff, technical staff that were conveying these messages, most especially on radio programs that were conducted. What were the lessons that we learned? One, that access to information is critical in creating awareness, which increases demand for and access of grant schemes. The radio and in-person engagements are more effective with this category of women. Need to integrate access to information on grant and loan schemes programming is very critical. Continued media campaigns enhance the recovery efforts, which is critical for successful revolving loan schemes implementation. We have seen an improvement in the recovery of these loans. And in conclusion, the Inform Women Transform Lives campaign has been able to raise the demand of the government programs being implemented in Kampala for supporting the women to access funds that are highly needed for them to access income-generating opportunities. The Carter Center is highly appreciated for this support and requested for continued supporting the same, both to Kampala and other cities. I'm glad to see the two cohorts that are coming, including Ghana, Accra here, that will benefit from this like we did. But of course, as I did mention, the raised demand of these loan schemes also requires for additional empowerment programs for us to be able to meet the demand of these women. I thank you so much.
Okay, before we turn to Nikki, are you guys as excited about this as we are? I mean, a 200% increase in women using free health services and $360,000 going out to women's cooperatives and youth to do things like expanding their bakeries, to start tailoring cooperatives, to sell ovens that they had created. I mean, these are really concrete examples that we rarely hear about how information is changing people's lives. I know it's late in the day, and I know you all are hungry, but this is incredible. And as you hear from our next two, I hope you keep in mind maybe 2 words. So when you leave here, I want you to remember 2 words about what they're all epitomizing, and that's innovation and intentionality. And that is so often missing in what we do, and these impacts are changing people's lives. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nikki. She's going to talk to you about what they've been doing in Birmingham in the United Kingdom, and then we'll hear from Rita from Accra. Thanks.
Just going to wait for my PowerPoint to come on, if that's okay. But it's a huge privilege to be with you all here this afternoon, and thank you for inviting me. So my name's Nikki Brennan. I am a counsellor in Birmingham, responsible for social justice, community safety and equalities. And part of that, what comes under that is women and women's services, especially around domestic abuse. What we have done as a campaign is to enhance the information for women for services in our city that already exist, to make sure that women know about them, how to get in touch with them and how to get the support that they need, because information is empowering for women and it can transform their lives, as we've seen with the impact of our campaign. It's given them strength in their own voices, and more importantly, it has helped them be free from abuse after recognising the signs of coercive control and emotional abuse, which are often very hidden and not talked about. So Birmingham is the biggest local authority in the UK. It is also the most diverse city in the UK. We have 200 different nationalities, there is 90 different languages spoken, and 52% of our population are from minority ethnic communities. And we're very, very proud of our diversity and cultural vibrance. We used to be called the City of 1,000 Trades, and now we are named the City of 1,000 Cuisines, because you can find any food from any nation in Birmingham. And this on our slide is just a breakdown of our population, our gender and ethnicity. So domestic abuse is a hidden crime which impacts every part of a survivor's life. And this is what we focused our Transform campaign on. It comes to 17% of calls to the police. It is our third highest reason for homelessness in our city, and the second highest reason for child safeguarding. But we know that this is just the tip of the iceberg, and that domestic abuse is not recognised or reported. So we commission independent specialist advice that is free, but due to the hidden nature of things like coercive control and emotional abuse, often women don't realise that this services exist or that they may need to get support. So we worked with media agency Liquid to develop the campaign. They are Birmingham based, which we thought was important, and they're very experienced. We also brought in our specialised domestic abuse partnership board, so we made sure that we had the specialisms and sensitivities to be able to reach out to survivors. And we developed a campaign of assets on what coercive control can look like. There's an example on the screen at the moment. And we did this with digital billboards, bus panels, supermarkets, social media and in-person events. And we released our campaign on the 16 Days of Action last year. We also called for mural designs, and that went out for International Women's Day this year. And the campaign is currently continuing with workshops across the city that are helping women to bust myths and to inform women about local services. So here is some of the examples of our campaign. If you see, they start with "he said," which shows how coercive control can get inside a woman's head or feel like they're not being abused at the time. And this is our beautiful mural in Birmingham City Centre, which has really brightened up a part of Birmingham that needed a bit of attention. It's absolutely fantastic to go and visit it, and we've had lots of women's support groups also go out and visit it. And there's a QR code on the side of the mural that shows women how they can get support and access to information. So our outcomes have been absolutely fantastic. Our press release reached over 9 million people. We had 6,000 views on the video on Facebook and X, and 1.5 million people were reached through our bus campaign, and 4.7 million people reached through the home advertising. And this has led to an increase in calls and visits to our DA services. So calls have gone up a quarter, and we've had a huge increase on the visits to our DA hub. Our mural is actually around the corner from the DA hub as well, so if a woman walked past and wanted to be able to get support, it wouldn't be a long way for her to go to be able to access that information. So also, I think having the mural and having this campaign has given survivors in our city confidence that our city council is there to support them and that they feel believed. And we've recently consulted on our DA strategy for the city, and this was one of the comments that we've had. So it reads, "I wish I had received support like this years ago. It would have made me leave my abusive partner sooner. I didn't know how my controlling ex was, and it took a long time for me to stop blaming myself and labelling myself as stupid." So this campaign has been about enabling women and girls from our city to access information, to be safe, to be free from abuse, and to live fulfilled lives. And information like this is not only powerful, but as you can see from the outcomes of the campaign, it is actually transforming lives in our city.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn to our final speaker, and then we're going to have a little bit of a discussion, but please start thinking about your questions, because we want you to be a part of this as well. There were 3 cohorts you saw. Rita's from the 3rd cohort, so they started most recently, and so she's going to be telling you a little bit about what they've been doing in Accra to advance the Inform Women, Transform Lives campaign.
Thank you very much, Laura. Good afternoon, everyone. I bring you warm greetings from the Mayor of Accra, Honorable Elizabeth K.T. Saki. She's a woman that's very passionate about women empowerment, and that informed the campaign that we chose for the Inform Women Campaign Initiative. To our guests who have traveled, participants who have traveled from outside into the country, into the city, we hope that you are enjoying Accra so far. Food is quite spicy, but we are hoping that you still have the palate for it and you're enjoying it. And of course, please do make time to explore as well. You know, you realize that we have a beautiful city. Let me give you a brief background about the city, Accra. Specifically, I am coming from Accra Metropolitan Assembly. It's one of the 206 MMDCs, that's Metropolitan Municipal District Assemblies in the country. And within the metropolis that we find ourselves, we have a lot of women-owned businesses, and I think that even cuts across, where statistics have shown that there's a lot of women-owned businesses in the country, and in Accra, within the space that we find ourselves, we do have that as well. But COVID hit, we all know, and it brought its devastating effects on a lot of businesses, and some of these businesses were impacted. Women lost access to their livelihood. Some couldn't sustain their businesses. They couldn't keep it afloat, and so had to shut down. In Accra, we actually have a daily influx of 2 million people coming into the country every day to transact business from cities within Ghana coming into Accra, which is the capital city. We do have others also coming from outside Ghana into Accra to transact business. And most of these these transactions are within the Accra metropolis where the mayor finds herself. And as I have indicated earlier, we do have a lot of women-owned businesses, and these were the businesses that were also impacted during the COVID. Now, the city, with the assistance or support of national government, proffer a lot of services, municipal services for residents in Accra, for businesses. I mean, some of these, and also for women, some of these services are ranging from access to healthcare, are ranging from domestic abuse support services, which the city is very much involved in, and of course, vocational skills and training as well. But it would shock you to also know that despite these interventions that most of these municipal assemblies through the government are actually proffering or giving to women or giving to residents in the city, you would find that there is still the access, or let's say the participation of these services are quite minimal. The reason being that there is lack of awareness. And we have come to the conclusion that just providing municipal services or providing public services are not enough. You need to make sure that your services are relevant and your services are very much known and people are aware. It is part of the reason why the city decided to be part of the Inform Women campaign through the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. Why? Because their objective also aligns with our vision to make sure that there's inclusivity and equity in public services within the city. What we want to do, we want to provide women with information which will inure to their economic empowerment. How are we going to do this? Is to make sure that these women have access to the information, first of all, that these services exist, and that we actually have financial literacy workshops that we do quarterly to make sure that it is helping these women improve on their businesses and sustain their businesses as well. So financial literacy courses or workshops being done every quarter for women-owned businesses. Of course, we still have those who are also unemployed, and the city, through the national government, provides vocational training skills for most of these women. This year, we are actually targeting textile training, but we do different vocational training for them, from soap making, beads making, but this time we want to focus on textile training. We want to do this to make sure that they are expanding their businesses, like those that are getting the financial literacy skills and business advisory services. We want to make sure that they are able to expand their businesses, they're able to keep afloat, they're able to sustain. And then for those that are unemployed, we want to make sure that they get something to rely on their livelihoods and also contribute meaningfully to their homes. We have come to the realization that by ensuring that women are informed about their rights, inclusion, and access to the services available to them, we want to actually bridge the gap between the underserved communities and municipal services. We want to make sure that our offices are open to them, that they have direct access to us, that they can reach us, and that they can actually access these services that we provide for them. Ultimately, we are hoping that especially those from the vulnerable groups are able to be economically empowered. And unlike my colleagues here from the different cohorts who have been able to successfully launch their campaigns, and I'm very much looking forward to learning from them, sharing best practices as to how they have been able to run their campaigns and how beneficial it has been for their women in their various cities. We actually don't have the specific statistics because we are just actually starting our campaign. And we are targeting 10,000 women with direct reach of our services. That is because for the women that are currently receiving our services, we are running in between 1,000 to 2,000 people actually receiving or accessing the services that the city provides for them, these economic empowerment initiatives. But we are hoping that through the Inform Women campaign with the Carter Center, we should be able to reach about 10,000 directly and about 50,000 indirect reach, which is the other women that would actually come to know that truly some services like this exist in the city. So thank you so much for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you, Rita. Okay, so I'm going to pose a question or two so that we can have a discussion. But I'd like you all to start thinking about questions that you might have around the work that these four colleagues have done. I just want to preface this with saying the Carter Center provided no money to the cities. These cities were provided the opportunity to use a small pot of money that we paid directly to vendors for more integrated, intentional, innovative communications. But they didn't receive money to do this. This is because they truly believe in what they're doing. And with that question, I want to ask each of you, perhaps you can share with us the one thing that you think made the difference, or one lesson that you've learned to date around trying to really reach women with information about your services, something that we all can take away with us if we want to do something similar. So I'm going to start with Onelia, Licenciada Roca. Can you tell us one thing that you learned, or what you think is that magic ingredient that made such a big difference in the work that you did?
Bueno, entre diferentes aspectos que fueron importantes, considero que uno de ellos fue el demostrarnos a nosotras mismos como equipo la importancia de que la información llegue de forma efectiva a los grupos de interés. El que la información llegara permitió que las mujeres accedieran a los servicios que prestamos, que los servicios han estado desde años atrás, pero el incremento se dio al momento de que las mujeres tuvieron acceso a la información. Y quizá otro de los factores importantes es el fortalecimiento de nuestro equipo técnico. El equipo técnico se empoderó de la importancia del acceso a la información y lo tradujo en acciones comunicacionales que permitieron el resultado que hemos presentado.
Oh, thank you, Lola, for this question, and the audience for your attention. For the part of Kampala, I can without a doubt, tell you that the packaging of the information we're sharing in the languages of the women that we are targeting, and using the media channel, specifically the radio programs that they listen to most times, and you speak the language they understand, as opposed to having this information spread in the newspapers, put on the websites, which they cannot access. But if you put it through a channel they access, radio programs, include information, for instance, that was very surprising for me, where the city division offices were located. The women didn't know. But once we went on the radio programs, they were allowed to even call in and ask questions, and then they ask you, where are your offices? And you explain the offices are this and this in this area, and they were able to access. But also to set the team, the technical teams in the offices, to be able to receive them every time they come, so that they don't bounce. These people, they are not used to the red tapes of government and bureaucracies. They want to come, get the service, and just go. It was the game changer for us.
I think for our campaign, it was our involvement with talking to women with lived experience and making sure that they were involved in the process. And it wasn't just people that may work in domestic abuse but haven't experienced them that were making decisions. So they were able to help us to know where to put advertisements and what would work in our campaign and what would be sensitive and what would help women to feel like they would have the confidence to be able to access those services and come forward. So I think having survivors with lived experience was something that was really important to our decision making and development of our campaign, and it's something that I would definitely support others that were thinking about doing campaigns to do as well.
I have come to realize that in any campaign, you have to engage the stakeholders, very key stakeholders, because without them, you cannot actually succeed. So in the design and even in the implementation of this campaign, we had to bring on board local stakeholders, the women-owned businesses, women associations, women groups. They were the ones that actually joined us to creating the campaign and making sure that it's going to be impactful when it's eventually rolled out.
Great. I have another question. Can I just see, do other people in the audience have questions? Because I'll just keep going otherwise. So can you raise your hand if you've got a question so we can bring a mic to you while I ask one or two more? Are y'all awake still? I know y'all are hungry, but this is like cool stuff that we're talking about here. Okay. I wanted to ask one or two more questions, but as long as we've got some in the audience. But first, I just wanted to say this is not a project. Like, we're calling it a campaign, but it's not a moment in time. And my question to you all is, what are you able to do, or how do you plan to take what you've learned through this campaign and make it sustainable across Kampala, across Guatemala City and Birmingham, and one day across, so that it's not just this service, but all of your services are benefiting from the intentionality that you've shown over the past year or two. And I'm going to switch this up, and I'm going to actually start with Godwin.
Thank you, Laura. The biggest lesson we have learned is that you cannot do away with informing the targeted beneficiaries of your programs, you must incorporate within the design of the program some funds to support this campaign, to support the dissemination of the information. As a matter of fact, the government of Uganda has come up with an equally exciting program called GROW, and this is funded by the World Bank, again targeting women to help them grow from micro to small and medium enterprises. And it is giving them a loan opportunity ranging from about $1,000 to $52,000. Huge amount of money at very affordable interest of 10% compared to commercial banks that go as above 18%. And I want to tell you that we are already in 2 discussions drawing from our lessons that this program's success also has to have a component of disseminating information to the targeted women specifically within the program dissemination so that they're able to access the services that this project has come up with. Thank you.
Thanks. So in other words, a service doesn't matter if people don't know about it. Like, what's the point of doing all the work that you all government officials are doing if people don't know it exists? Anybody else? Anelia, Nikki, Rita? You guys can raise, who wants to go next? Nikki, why don't you go next?
So I think for Birmingham, these services have existed for years. We have a statutory obligation to provide support for women that are experiencing domestic abuse. But the fact that lots of women didn't know where the services were, how to access them, whether they were experiencing domestic abuse, that was problematic. And I think that when we move forward with what we're doing and have these services that are very important, we need to make sure that we have this kind of campaign alongside the services so that people know where to get support. And actually, it's not really small on the bottom of a website, it's actually on the side of buses in our city, it's on billboards. We've got our mural now, and that's a lasting contribution to the city. But when we have these services, we need to make sure that they're advertised properly and people know that they're about. And actually, going back to Birmingham, I'm going to look at how we can bring it into our education in our schools, for example, and get some of the slides and some of the visuals into our schools so that we can start teaching girls young what domestic abuse is, what coercive control is, so that, and where they, if they were to experience it, that they know where to get the help and support that they need.
I think when Laura asked one thing that we thought worked well for us, and I mentioned collaboration with the local stakeholders, was something that I wanted to add to it, which is actually mayoral leadership. I mean, currently, in order to sustain this campaign and also to make sure that there's going to be a constant access to these services and also information flow going into the communities, the mayor is putting systems in place that is going to actually outlive her leadership. So systems that is going to connect key people that will be working on these programs. So the office of the mayor, the social welfare department, the communities that are benefiting, the decentralized sub-metro offices that we have that deal directly with communities. All these key people, the mayor is putting a system in place that will make sure that even when she is not in office, these programs, these services, the access to them and the information flow is still going to be there and actually outlive her and be sustainable. So I would say systems. That's what.
Desarrollar mensajes creativos, asertivos, para dar a conocer los servicios a los que pueden acceder las mujeres, nos permitió darnos cuenta que cualquier otra información de servicios municipales que querramos trasladar a nuestros ciudadanos, las campañas pueden tener un buen éxito. Y eso ha permitido que la campaña no solamente haya sido un proyecto con una corta temporalidad. Muchas de las herramientas que implementamos en la campaña siguen vigentes. Recientemente realizamos una campaña dirigida hacia mujeres sobre el tema de medio ambiente. Entonces, la campaña nos dio la oportunidad de encontrar una forma de acercar la información a las mujeres para que se puedan beneficiar de los diferentes programas y recursos municipales.
Okay. Any questions from the audience? Can we bring, there's two. Why don't we start in the front, and then we've got our colleague, whoever's got it for, okay, so from our colleague from Spain.
Buenas tardes, soy de Chile. Me voy a parar porque soy muy bajita. Muchas gracias, felicitaciones a todos los panelistas por las exposiciones, pero sobre todo por estos cambios tan transformadores que están haciendo. Mi pregunta es para la delegada de Guatemala y es sobre el acuerdo de Escazú. Este es un acuerdo, el único acuerdo de Latinoamérica y el Caribe sobre derecho a acceso a la información, entre otros aspectos medioambiental. Y en la última COP este año se aprobó una guía para transversalizar el acceso a la información con perspectiva de género y un plan de acción para proteger a los defensores y defensoras ambientales. Lo que es crucial porque el 85% de los asesinatos son en nuestra región. De esos asesinatos, 196 el año pasado, 42 pertenecían a pueblos indígenas y el 12% eran mujeres. Guatemala fue parte del comité de negociación, también fue de los primeros en firmar. Entonces mi pregunta es saber si dentro de su institución ven valioso este instrumento y si de alguna manera también que pudiéramos sumar a Guatemala a este tratado que ya es parte de la mayoría de la región. Muchas gracias.
We're going to collect a few questions. We need a microphone up here.
I have a very loud voice, but perhaps a microphone might help. I wanted to ask probably quite an uncomfortable question, particularly violence against women, but actions against women starts with men. And I think it's what we've heard is absolutely fabulous, and I'm with you, Laura, this is really amazing stuff. But how do we tackle the problem that the sort of entitlement that men feel they have in almost every jurisdiction in the world, and it is exacerbated by accessibility to things like pornography and influencers who are trying to encourage men to stand on their own and be seen as superior. I think there's a really big bit that's perhaps not covered by just dealing with women.
Thank you. Any other questions before we take these two difficult ones about dealing with environmentalists that are being murdered in Guatemala and addressing men who are the perpetrators of violence? Let me just note, neither of these are about accessing information, but very, very interesting questions. Martina has one, and we'll take hers as the last in this group.
Yeah, thank you so much, Laura. Great thanks to the panelists. My name is Martina. I'm working with the German Federal Commissioner for Freedom of Information. And we have this ombuds function when it comes to access to information, and more than 80% of the people who are asking us for help are male. So, and this is really striking, and we are wondering what can be done, and this is the question I want to ask to you, what can be done to encourage women, and particularly when you see women doing the care work, maybe as a single mom working as a nurse, she will work all night having to take care of her kids. Is there like a key or the argument how you can encourage those exhausted women that it's important to make use of their right to access information. Thank you.
Okay, do you want to start? Pero brevemente.
Bueno, respecto a la pregunta de Chile, respecto al tratado, yo diría que los tratados generalmente se trabajan a nivel de gobierno central. Si pudiese considerarse, siendo la ciudad de Guatemala la ciudad más grande del país, que pudiera ser parte del tratado, nuestra institución estaría encantada de poder ser parte del tratado. De hecho, en este momento se está trabajando la política medioambiental de la ciudad con enfoque de género, que uno de los esfuerzos que hemos hecho es cómo ir transversalizando el enfoque de género en la administración municipal. Con gusto estaríamos abiertos a ello. La importancia de que las mujeres puedan acceder a los diferentes programas y proyectos es parte del trabajo que realizamos en la Dirección Municipal de la Mujer. Informar a las mujeres sobre sus derechos, fortalecer la autoestima de las mujeres, desarrollar habilidades de liderazgo, son 3 herramientas que consideramos importantes para el empoderamiento de las mujeres y que a partir de ahí ellas puedan avanzar, dar un paso adelante y no retroceder.
I'll take the second question, which I wouldn't say is an uncomfortable question, but a difficult one to solve. I think when it comes to accountability, when we talk about domestic abuse, we need to realise, and when we talk about ending violence against women and girls, we need to have that bit about perpetrator responsibility. And when I've talked previously about our DA strategy that's for our city, a key element of that is about holding perpetrators to account and making sure that any kind of attitudes that are bad towards women and girls are challenged. I worked before I was a cabinet member as the Victims Commissioner for our region, where we worked with lots of victims that were women that were experiencing abuse, that felt that they didn't have confidence in our justice systems to hold perpetrators to account, but also just wonder as well. And we did do a very interesting programme where we went into schools and talked to boys that were exhibiting problematic behaviour around girls and trying to link it in with information. We had role models for these boys. They were very relatable people, often looked like what you would see one of these problematic TikTok influencers look like, but actually challenged their behaviour and talked about maybe everything that you're seeing on TikTok isn't true, and maybe actually it's damaging how you feel about women. And they had 14 sessions over, I think it was 3 months, and then they evaluated whether or not it had made a difference. And to a lot of the boys, having the information that what you're doing is wrong, what you're doing is damaging, and holding them to account really helped. And that's why I think having male allies in the Vogue scene is really important. So looking at what White Ribbon do and having men that are quite happy to stand up for women and stand up to the rights of women can never be underestimated. I think it's so important.
Yes, I just want to add a few things that, one, ending violence against women and girls is a very, very critical thing to do, challenging as it is. And we need a multiple approach to this question, because some of the reasons, as you are well aware, are due to cultural beliefs, norms, and attitudes, which you cannot change overnight. In my opinion, we need to increase and continue sensitization of violence against women and girls across the board. We need to empower women economically and with information. With right information, they will make the right decisions. We need to keep the women and girls informed of the happenings. A girl child needs to be helped to acquire education because it will help them to get information and also to make informed decisions. Economic empowerment is very critical because in some of our cultural beliefs, norms and attitudes, women are not supposed to inherit property, for instance, in the cultures where we come from. They do not have access to finances, they do not have access to jobs, and they are just left at the mercy of the men, and this disempowers them. So economic empowerment of women will go a long way towards supporting ending violence against women and girls.
Thank you. So it looks like people are joining us, which tells me that I think we need to soon wrap up our panel. I did want to note Martina's question, where she asked that in Germany, 80% of those requesting information are men. And how do we encourage women to make use of the right to information? I think what you've heard today that I'd like to note and to kind of foot stomp, as they say, is that these campaigns were not about women seeking information. This was about the city being incredibly proactive about identifying the information needs and getting it into the hands of women in a much more, I'm going to say it again, intentional and innovative way. And so if we wait for women to come and ask for information, we know that often won't happen because of all those obstacles that we talked about earlier, whether time or mobility or culture or literacy. But that doesn't mean women don't need the information, and it certainly doesn't mean that women don't need the services. Because as you've heard across this board, what these cities have done is what you as national governments have been dying to do. They've increased their own capacity. They've built on the democracies that they have. They've increased trust in their agencies and in the city itself simply by being intentional about getting information out. So I did just want to give each speaker one last word to say whatever they want, but if they're interested, I would love to hear from them what they're most proud of in being part of this campaign, which really over a year to a year and a half in each of these cities was incredibly transformative. So I'm going to start with Nikki, and I'm going to go on down to Rita, and then we're going to conclude. Before I do, I also want to thank our interpreters. We have both Spanish and English interpreters, as well as our sign language interpreters, and thank you all for making this session accessible to everyone. So, Nikki, what are perhaps your last word or what you're most proud of?
I think I'll say what I'm most proud of, and I think I'm most proud of some of the feedback that we've had from survivors that have accessed the information, that have been able to get help from the services, and are now living free and safe and recovering from abuse. And I don't think we can underestimate the impact that that's had on women and children's lives in our city of Birmingham.
Access to information is very critical. I have seen how Inform Women Transform Lives, supported by the Carter Center, supported women to access the existing loan schemes in Kampala that they didn't know. I have seen these women generate income. They're able to look after themselves, they're able to look after their families, they're able to send their children to school, they're able to get medical treatment for their children. And an empowered woman with money, with some income, is able to change a lot in the family, in the community, and in the country, as compared to men in most cases. In my case in Uganda, and I know in many other countries, if a man gets money, it is most likely they are going to add another wife. But for a woman, they are going to look after the man, they are going to look after the children, they are going to look after the family. I thank you.
Bueno, acercar la información, acercar los servicios a las mujeres es algo que nos llena de mucho orgullo. Haber desarrollado una campaña y acciones en favor de las mujeres desde la ciudad de Guatemala, pues nos ha hecho estar dentro de esas 13 primeras ciudades que fueron seleccionadas para la campaña. Nos permite estar el día de hoy aquí representando a mi ciudad con una iniciativa de acceso de la información a las mujeres. Eso nos llena de mucho orgullo.
In our pre-campaign sessions with the women, what we're most proud of is their acceptance of the campaign and what we're seeking to do. their appetite and the need to have information and be informed, which is spurring us on to develop innovative ways of making sure that they have access to information, and also we are bringing our services to their doorsteps. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please join me in congratulating these 4 cities and thanking them for sharing their experiences. And thank you to all of you who stood through this with us. We know you're hungry, and so we pass this over to our moderator for the rest of the day. Thank you all.
And with that panel, 2 days of thought-provoking discussions on universal access to information is coming to an end. We will now watch a quick video, after which we will launch straight into the closing ceremony and then lunch awaits.
The International Day for Universal Access to Information under the theme Mainstreaming Access to Information and Participation in the Public Sector, happening for the very first time in Africa.
It gives me great pleasure and a deep sense of fulfillment to welcome you all to the 2024 Global Conference of the International Day for Universal Access to Information, IDUAI. We are gathered here today not only to celebrate an essential pillar of democracy, but to reaffirm our collective commitment to ensuring that access to information is mainstreamed and embraced as a tool for participatory governance in the public sector. Since the enactment and implementation of Ghana's Right to Information Act 2019, Act 989, we have made significant strides in enhancing transparency and ensuring citizens have the right to request and receive information from public offices. The government has embarked on a number of initiatives aimed at making information more accessible to citizens and ensuring that public participation becomes a cornerstone of policy making. Long live UNESCO, long live access to information, long live Ghana. I thank you for your attention.
Access to information is not just a privilege for the few, but it is a fundamental right for everyone in society. In other words, it's not enough to have laws on the books. They must become game changers in everybody's life. And for that, these laws need to be effectively and timely implemented. Our success story comes from Ghana, where the 2019 Right to Information Act has empowered the Commission to raise public awareness and successfully address numerous appeals against denied information requests. These efforts have strengthened accountability and transparency in governance. As we move forward, let's remember that the availability of information must be accompanied by the capacity and willingness of government to share it openly and transparently. Let's work together to overcome the challenges that remain, to tell the untold success stories, and to ensure that every citizen, regardless of their background or circumstances, can fully participate in the life of their nation.
This is my firm belief, one shared by many in this room and around the world, that access to information is not merely a procedural aspect of governance, but a fundamental pillar of democracy. A well-informed citizenry is a powerful force able to hold leadership accountable, demand better services, and participate meaningfully in the development of their nation. The struggles and advocacy that led to the eventual passage of the Right to Information Act. Many doubted whether it will ever come to pass, but my administration understood that it was not a question of if, but when. We knew that without political will, this fundamental right will continue to be delayed. And so we acted, because no modern democracy can thrive without ensuring that the public has access to the information they need to make informed decisions. As we look forward to the future, I call on all stakeholders, government agencies, civil society, the media, and the private sector to work together to promote a culture of openness, transparency, and accountability.
Thank you very much for that. Two quick announcements. Guests from outside of Ghana have a tourism program arranged for after lunch. There are buses outside. Lunch, we think, should take about 40 minutes, so please have a quick lunch and head to the car park area where you can join the bus for the event. And I think Pansy has an announcement. Quickly, if you can come and give it.
Thank you very much. For members of ANIC, there is no tour. African Network of Information Commissions, we are meeting at 3:15 at the room where the other breakaway was. But even those that come from oversight bodies who are not yet members of ANIC are invited. The meeting will be at 3:15. Thank you very much.
I'm glad I didn't make that announcement. And now we pass, like I said, directly to the closing ceremony, what will bring to an end two thought-provoking days, important panels, and important discussions on universal access to information. It is my singular honor now to ask to come to the stage the Ghanaian Minister for Information, the Honorable Fatimatu Abubakar, with a round of applause, please.
Thank you. Assistant Director General of UNESCO, His Excellency Tofik Jelassi, the Honorable Ministers of Information from Zambia, Gabon, the Gambia, and Sierra Leone, commissioners, our global experts, excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all further protocols duly observed. As we draw the curtains on the 2024 International Day for Universal Access to Information, graciously hosted in the heart of Accra, Ghana, I stand before you today with immense gratitude and a deep sense of accomplishment. Over the past 2 days, we have engaged in insightful reflections, shared knowledge, and reaffirmed our shared commitment to ensuring that access to information remains a powerful tool in building inclusive and resilient societies. The conversations and deliberations that have taken place here have been nothing short of enlightening. Our discussions have not only addressed the complexities of mainstreaming access to information within the public sector, but have also challenged us to consider how information can be a driver of sustainable development, transparency, and social accountability. Together, we have laid the foundation for a future where information flows freely, empowering citizens and enhancing governance. As we explore the profound impact of access to information on energy access, public participation, and inclusivity, one thing became clear: information is not just a right, it is an enabler of progress. Our collective commitment to advancing this cause has been evidenced throughout, and we have gone above and beyond the expectations set for this year's commemoration. The initiatives and frameworks we have discussed, such as the online records management system, signal our dedication to digitizing and streamlining access to public information for all Ghanaians. Throughout this journey, we have strengthened partnerships, exchanged ideas, and built lasting relationships, which will drive forward our agenda of open governance. Our resolve to continue improving access to information in every corner of the country, particularly in underserved and marginalized communities, have never been stronger. As we return to our various institutions and continue with our work, let us carry with us the spirit of collaboration and purpose that has defined this year's IDUAI. Let us remain steadfast in our efforts to promote transparency, accountability, and inclusive governance through access to information. And let us always remember that information is the lifeblood of democracy, the bridge between governments and the governed. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I extend my heartfelt appreciation to our partners, especially to UNESCO. ADJ, thank you so much. We are grateful to your entire team, the office in Ghana, and also the Ghana Commission. The Right to Information Commission, we are most grateful for the partnership. This conference would not have been possible but for the collaboration between our respective organizations and the National Planning Committee. To the Ghana Immigration Service, who facilitated entry for our external visitors, we say thank you. To GIZ, we appreciate your contribution and hope that we can collaborate further in the future. We are grateful to State Protocol for facilitating all movements for our visitors, and also to the media for the live coverage that they have given this event since yesterday. And to all those who have worked tirelessly to make this year's IDUAI a success. Your dedication and unwavering commitment have been pivotal, and your contribution will continue to shape the future of access to information in Ghana and beyond. As we bid farewell, let us look ahead with optimism. Together, we are building a future where access to information serves as the foundation for a more inclusive, resilient, and empowered society. Thank you, and may we meet again in the spirit of progress and shared purpose. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. And now we ask the Assistant Director General for UNESCO in charge of Communication and Information, Dr. Tofik Jalasi, to take the floor.
Excellency, Minister of Information of Ghana, the Honorable Fatimatu Abubakar, Excellencies, Ministers, esteemed participants, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude our celebration of the 2024 International Day for Universal Access to Information, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to each one of you for coming to Accra and for your active participation and sharing with us your experiences and insights over the last 2 days. Yesterday and today, we have delved into the theme of this conference, mainstreaming access to information and participation in the public sector, which resonates deeply with our collective mission to foster transparency, accountability, and inclusive governance. It was said just a few minutes ago by the Minister that access to information is not just a right, it's a cornerstone of democracy. It empowers citizens, enhances public participation, and therefore strengthens the relationship between governments and the people they serve. By mainstreaming access to information, we are promoting information, decision-making, and ensuring that every voice is heard and that every individual has the opportunity to contribute significantly and meaningfully to public discourse. Throughout our 2-day discussions, we have explored various strategies to successfully implement access to information laws in public institutions. We have heard from ministers, from information commissioners, from our special rapporteur, from the African Union, from experts, from media professionals, from representatives of civil society organizations who have genuinely shared with us their insights, experiences, and expertise, highlighting the transformative power of open and transparent governance across public institutions. We have also looked at the Accra Statement, Harnessing the Power of Data for Positive Change. It was presented this morning, and this statement expresses our common commitment to implementing the ideas and solutions discussed during this event. Let us work together to create an environment where information flows freely, where public participation is encouraged, and where trust in our institutions is restored and even strengthened. I would like to thank our speakers, organizers, and all participants for making this event a success. Special thanks to the government of Ghana for hosting us, to the Ministry of Information of Ghana, to the Honorable Minister herself, to her team, to the Rights to Information Commission of Ghana, and of course also to the National Commission of Ghana to UNESCO. Let me also thank the ministers from Ghana, Sierra Leone, Gambia, Gabon, and Zambia, who have shown their commitment to promoting access to information. I would like also to acknowledge the hard work of the colleagues in the UNESCO office in Accra, the colleagues in our headquarters at UNESCO in Paris, who have worked tirelessly with their Ghanaian colleagues and with the participants in making this event happen. Let's continue to champion this noble cause every day as we strive to build a more informed, engaged, and empowered society. Let us look forward to a future where access to information is universally recognized and upheld as a fundamental right for all. Since I'm now the only obstacle between you and your lunch, let me conclude by thanking you all and wishing you a safe travel back home, and look forward to seeing you next year for the 2025 International Day for Universal Access to Information. Thank you.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, the 2024 Global Celebration of IDUAI has come to an end. Enjoy your lunch and enjoy your tour. Thank you very much. Can I ask that all media and support staff stay? I'm getting something about... All right. So we are going to somehow fit ourselves onto this podium. Can I ask you then to all please come up here?
The locations where the tour buses are. So we are taking a group.
We're waiting for you to come up here. I've been asked to tell you that the tour buses, which will be at the car park, will take you to, I think, the Kwame Nkrumah Museum, and also take you on a tour around Accra. You would like it. Saying that it is for our guests only, we hope you join the bus. Please come up here so we take a group photo. Please do not leave without joining this group 40. Please come up for our family photo and then we can proceed to lunch. Anywhere here will be fine. You can stand on the podium stage or you can be on the... I have also announced that media and support staff do not go to lunch. Wait here for your coupons. Media support staff, please stay behind. Would like to do this within the next 2 minutes. Please come on up and join the family photo. Thank you very much for your cooperation.